Let's go ahead and take your seats, and we'll go ahead and get started here. Welcome to the 2016 All-College meeting. Appreciate you being here. I'll be speaking for 20 minutes or so, and then we'll walk through this. But just to give you an idea of what you can expect, according to our college code, we're supposed to have a faculty meeting annually, and so formally this fills that function. And in the code it talks about faculty votes on issues and so on, and since I've been here, there's never been a full faculty vote on anything, but if there's a need to do so, we can always schedule another session if there's particular issues that we need to address in that way. So this is, as much as anything, just an opportunity to give you all an update on lots of different things that are going on in the college, to introduce you to some new people who are with us. And one of the things we started last year was reviews, or at least reports out from some of our college level centers and programs. And so we'll continue that this year with 3 of those reports. A number of you have seen this. John Isley is out there doing headshots. If anybody wants their photo taken, he'll be out there for about another half an hour or so. So feel free to take advantage of that opportunity and sneak out if you need to. The structure for this has evolved a bit over time. We're honing in on something that I think works pretty well with reports from me and the associate deans, and the plan was to have also a report from our Director of Communications, Rob Novak, but he came down with a pretty bad case of the flu a couple of days ago, and so I'll be saying a few of the things that he was going to say, and then we'll go through our center reports. We'll do something a little bit different this year with the faculty panel, and I'll talk about that when we get there. And then at the end, there'll be the opportunity for an open forum if there are questions, comments, things anybody wants to bring up for the good of the group. So part of this really is also a celebration. We're doing this right in front of our kind of formal celebration of our holiday party after this, but this the celebration of all the great things that have gone on in the college, I think, really begins now, and every good celebration or every good party needs party favors, and so we made up these nice beer glasses for you here. They're over there on the table, and part of the benefit that you receive from having come today is you get to take one of these with you. If you want to rinse it out and use it for the beer part of the party after this part's done, feel free to do so, but don't forget to do that, and I'll try to remind you before you leave. So with that, I want to start out by where am I here? Yeah, recognizing some new faces and just talking about identifying a number of the folks that have joined us here in the past year. There's always a great set of folks that are joining us in various different capacities. In ecosystem science sustainability, I'll specifically draw attention to Ed Hall. Ed, I don't think is here, but he has been here for a while as a scientist with NREL, and then was hired this past year into a tenure track faculty member as part of the microbiome cluster on the campus, and hopefully we'll get a chance to hear from him at next year's faculty panel. Forest and Rangeland Stewardship, Seth Davis is our new faculty member in that department. We have a number of other administrative professionals and postdoc that joined us. One new postdoc in geosciences, human dimensions and natural resources, and then a lot of different individuals in NREL. The list in CEMAL, Center for Environmental Management and Military Lands, is a really long one, and I'll show you that list in just a second, but I wanted to especially point out, hired a new director this year, Erica Fleshman. I saw Erica walk in there you want to stand up and so we can see you, Erica. So Erica joined us just a month or so ago, and also has a joint appointment in the Department of Fish, Wildlife, and Conservation Biology as a faculty member. So great to have you here with us, Erica. And then SEMO is always the cast of thousands, and there was somewhere close to 100 new people hired in SEMO this year. Huge program scattered across the country, and so it's a really important part of our program. Also, quite a cohort of I guess I'm looking at this wrong. I'm a slide behind, aren't I? Quite a cohort of folks in Colorado State Forest Service as well. In the dean's office, we have a number of new people, and I especially want to draw attention to our IT group here. Gary, are you here somewhere? Yeah, Gary Senseman. Many of you know Gary. Why don't you wave again now that you're, yeah. Gary's been a long-term PI and member of the team in SEMO, and in the past several months has joined us as well, and has a joint appointment in the college now as our director of our IT program. And I think things have just been going great under your leadership, Gary. Really appreciate it. And then we have two other new IT staff also on board. Stephen Oglesby, who I saw, Stephen back in the back, and Nate back here on the side, our newest member of the team. And so I think, the IT group has gone through a lot of transition over the last year or two, and I feel like we really have a strong program in place now with some great folks involved. So with that, I'm going to shift and give just a very brief overview here of things going on in the college. I'm pretty excited about a lot of things that are going on, and kind of the way I think about it. I'm very pleased, but I'm not satisfied. I think that we're making great progress on a lot of fronts, but at the same time, we still have a lot of work to do. And but as I think about the major initiatives that we've kind of identified collectively through our strategic plan and through other processes, we're making at least incremental progress on all of them, all of those fronts, and all the major directions that we wanted to go. Haven't experienced any major setbacks in any of those areas. And then in a few areas, we've seen some pretty significant steps forward. And so it's a good time in the college. We came up with this strategic plan, I don't know, maybe a year and a half ago now, and really proud of this. It's been great for us to use it both for external audiences to kind of give a sense of where we are going and how we see ourselves, but also internally, it's been helpful, at least for me, to kind of keep the compass pointed in the right direction and keep a reminder for us on directions that we want to go. This strategic plan really is part of 3 documents that are the guiding documents, at least for the dean's office and for much of the college. There's that piece. There are a set of strategic initiatives that align with each of the goals of the strategic plan. We did those a little over a year ago. We've made some of those initiatives that we identified in that, we checked off the box and ready to move on. Other ones are in progress, and some are not quite as far along as I'd like to be, but we're making progress on all those. But the reason I bring this up is that it's time to revisit that and move forward with a new set of initiatives that align with our strategic plan. And in the next few weeks, I'll be in touch with you all on that and looking for your input and guidance on where to go on that. The third document is one that we're calling our institutional profile. It's available right now in a not quite finished format, but it's really the underlying metrics and statistics for the college. And a lot of these things you can find in really disparate places, our grantsmanship activity, the number of students that are Pell eligible or whatever that statistics. There's lots of different things. And it's been challenging because every time we need those data, it seems like it takes about a half an hour for us to get it. So we've created this structure now where those data will be readily available, and it'll come out in two different formats. One is one that's really made for internal use that will be a set of tables. There's about maybe 25 different topics that we're tracking through that. And then the other is a more public and outward-facing document that will have pretty infographics and so on that talks about some of the activities in the college and progress that we're making. So stay tuned for that. That's coming soon. One of the big things in the life of the college, and certainly in my life right now, is we've been moving forward with plans for expansion of the Natural Resources Building. That's going great. We hit our development goal for generating funds to move forward on that a few months back, about $20.2 million for that project, of which about $12 million are externally funded through philanthropic contributions from different individuals. And so once we had that in place, we started moving forward with really refining the vision and coming up with plans as to what that building would look like. A number of you have been involved in public forums where we got the basic vision and kind of the overall programming of that building in place. And from that, we moved to a formal process with facilities to solicit design build firms to help us move that vision forward. A group of 10 of us, 5 from the college, and I want to recognize Mark Paschke, Rob Novak, Gary Senseman, Kate Hyvert, and then myself, along with 5 people from facilities, have been spending a lot of time vetting proposals and interacting with design build firms. There are 3 finalist groups for that, and they've been engaged in design competition to create new innovations beyond what we thought of. And we will get their final proposals next week, actually, and then pick which design firm we'll work with from that. At this point, all of those ideas that they're coming up with are confidential because it's a competition and they're competing against one another. But shortly after the next week, we'll be able to let you know who that was. And the plan is that in probably late January, maybe early February, we'll have another open forum where we present all of those designs and the ideas. There's still opportunity for adjustments. And so the outside architecture and the basic layout will be pretty well in place, but things like floor plans and there's still opportunity for other innovative activities. We haven't spent a lot of time refining ideas about how we're going to display the college message inside the building. And so, be it in geological collections or artwork or whatever it is. So there's lots of opportunity, and there'll be additional opportunity for folks to engage in that soon. So pretty exciting. I think if the designs go the way that I think that they are going to, I think you'll be excited to see the innovations that they've come up with. It's another great year from our development team. Scott, Roberta, and is Jonathan here too? Yeah, Jonathan have had another fantastic year. The college as a whole is engaged in the university's development campaign. Our piece of that campaign is an $80 million piece, and that $80 million needs to be generated between 2012 and 2020. So we're a little over halfway into that process, or right around halfway. And to date, the team has brought in $58 million. And so we're 73% of the way there, which is pretty exciting. it'd be even more exciting if I didn't know that as we get closer to 100, they're going to push the goal further. So, but no, these guys are doing a great job. Appreciate the hard work that they're doing. Obviously, a big part of that is the $12 million that we brought in for the new building, and the most recent gift from Michael Smith for the naming of that building. Another big chunk came in this year, $3.2 million for a new endowed chair and endowed program in waterfowl ecology and wetland conservation. We're excited about that. In what I hope is the final stages of negotiation with the candidate for that position, and so hopefully there'll be an announcement about that soon. But anyway, I think things are going really well. 79 people in the college who work for the college have contributed to that campaign in the past year. Thank you very much. I know everybody's got different feelings about this as to whether or not it's appropriate as an employee to give and so on. I'll tell you personally, I'm all in on this idea. I think that, and partly the part of that is that, I've been able to see firsthand the types of impacts that those contributions have made that the university will never cover, and no university ever does. Things like our scholarship fund. We have 220 scholarships we were able to give this past year. 19 of them were new ones this year, and it was because of the new contributions of individuals, some of them in the college. So that's pretty exciting. With that, I'm going to turn and chat a little bit about communications. Rob would have done this. He had 10 minutes to do it. I'm going to do it in 3, in part because there's a lot of details here that he'll be sharing later. But one of the big things that's going on in the communications office right now is we're revamping the web page. That's been a long process. A lot of the reason is that it's been a long process is not internal to us. It's some of our partners that have been working on that. But as it turns out, that's probably okay. And the reason is, as we start to look at this, and as our IT group has started to dig into this, as Gary said to me this morning, the web is a tangled one, and there's lots of different pieces, and we've had this kind of Christmas tree of a web, and then people have started hanging ornaments on it over the last several years, and it's in a kind of a convoluted position structurally. And so getting that all untangled and restructured in a logical way and shifting all of those to the new website is time consuming, and we've actually been able to use that time. But the plan is that sometime spring semester that it will be launched, and to quote our communications director, it will be awesome. So that's moving forward. Been working with the departments in getting their content transferred over into this new format, and I wanted to recognize the individuals in those different departments that have been really instrumental in helping move that forward. I haven't been personally involved in it, but all the reports that I get from Rob indicate that they're just doing an amazing job. So you see those people, some of them are here today, give them a pat on the back and thank them for their hard work. The last little thing I'll say about communications is we've been working on a project that'll have a new display in that first floor of natural resources. It's something Rob and I have been working on for quite a while. I'm pretty excited about it. It should come up in the next week, maybe 2 weeks. So next time you're wandering around natural resources, take a look in there. I'm not going to spill the beans, but I'm pretty excited. Last thing about communications, Rob will be sending out a note to you all soon. He was going to do kind of a major release of some activities at the university level at this meeting, but there'll be a college-wide email that he sends with a lot of details on that. I'm going to leave him to that. So with that, we'll move on to our report for academic affairs. Rich Conant.
Thanks, John. My name is Rich Conant, and I'm Associate Dean for Academic Affairs in the college. And I'd like to start by recognizing one additional person who's new to the college, but temporary, Leanne Biddle. I'm not sure if she's here or not, but she's serving as the temporary career liaison for our college. So she's interacting with students, advising them on careers. The take-home message of what I want to say is that the state of undergraduate affairs in the college is strong. And really that's a testament to all the great things that people in the college are doing. And I'm lucky that I get to stand up here and talk about these accomplishments. And I want to thank Ethan for all the hard work that he's done centrally within the college. I can't say enough about Ethan. So many of the time, so if you do a Google search, you'll find all kinds of ways that CSU is recognized for being very strong in environmental sciences. And some of these have to do with research, some have to do with academics, some have to do with operations on campus. But these ones highlight some of the contributions that our college makes that I think are fairly unique. So last year I mentioned that CSU is the only platinum-rated ASHE STARS Institute in the country. And delving down a little bit further into the report, the reason that's true is largely because of the academics. We're one of the best, broadest academic institutions in terms of delivering sustainability and environmental courses. We're also really highly ranked for research and public outreach, and also diversity and affordability. And so we rank strongly across the board, and this is something that we should be proud of. U.S. News and World Report has us ranked number 39 in the world for environmental sciences. College Factual says that we're one of the top 10 schools for natural resources and conservation, and we're one of the best outdoor colleges, ranked number 2 in the world by Outdoor Recreation magazine. For this reason, amongst others, enrollment across the college has been growing. Last year, we had about 600 undergraduates and about 250 graduate students. And the composition of our student body is changing too. The college is becoming more female. Recently we were as much as 2/3 male. Now we're about 55% male, 45% female. The fraction of out-of-state students is increasing from about a quarter of the population to about a third. And this past year, for the first time, the incoming freshman class is majority out-of-state students. And we're becoming more diverse as well. We have our highest diversity of entering class ever, almost 20% non-white students in entering class. We're developing some new programs. We continue to pursue programs in ecosystem science and sustainability for MS and PhD degrees. And there's a desire to create a watershed-specific PhD. Both these programs are in the pipeline. There's a proposal that came from HDNR recently for a new minor in intercultural views of natural resources. There are new graduate certificates, including the Sustainable Military Lands, which has been implemented by CEML, Adventure Tourism and Agritourism from HDNR. And there's work in progress to revise the SIMS minor within the college. We do face some challenges. So CSU has set some really ambitious goals for our students that will, if we achieve them, really set CSU apart as a land-grant institution in terms of student success. And the primary metrics that we're concerned about when we talk about student success are student retention and more importantly, student graduation rates. And I've plotted those here on this figure. I'm not sure if you can see that, but it shows student retention, those two upper lines, and 6-year graduation rate. And the two different lines distinguish retention and graduation rates for minority and non-minority students. And the university's goals are to achieve an 80% 6-year graduation rate. To do that, we think we need to achieve a 90% first-year retention. And so that red horizontal bar indicates a 90% first-year retention. And you can see that within the college, our students are retained within the university at a pretty high rate, and that we don't really have a gap between our minority students and our non-minority students. And there's a small gap between our students who are on Pell Grants and the rest of the population, and a small gap for students who are first-generation college students whose parents didn't go to school. And the goal is to completely eliminate those gaps. The challenge is that those students come in less well prepared for college. Nevertheless, the university's goal is to eliminate those gaps regardless of their previous preparation. And we have a big gap here with between six-year graduation rates for our white and for our non-white students. And this is something that we really need to work on. And this is a key component of the second phase of the Student Success Initiative. So the first phase of the Student Success Initiative was the most visible by the hiring and training and coordination of academic support coordinators throughout the institution. And we've benefited from that. I think that our students are getting much better advice, and I think it's been reflected in the uptick of the university persistence rates and graduation rates that we've seen over time. The second phase is going to be implemented through the colleges. In our college, like many other colleges on campus, we really begin to interact with the students most directly during their sophomore year and through their junior and senior years. And so many of the things implemented in the Student Success 1 initiative were focused on those first 2 years, getting students through biology and chemistry and physics and calculus. And I think that we've made some progress there. But now we need to focus on students who are actively engaged in the college and close those gaps for students who are sophomores, juniors, and seniors. And the way that people think that we can do that is through high-impact practices in the classroom and outside of the classroom that really engage students, make students feel part of the community. And I think that we do a lot of these things already. Kay has done some research that's demonstrated that we actively engage the students in many ways. But what we're talking about doing within the college is evaluating how effective those things we classify as high impact practices are. So this is a figure showing some data that Bridget McCreary, an undergraduate student, compiled under Ethan's supervision for the ESS major, and we've compiled data for the watershed major too, showing some of the classes and other activities that we consider high impact practices that we think engage our students. And I think some of these are unique to our college. And the next phase will be to create similar charts for each of the majors within our college, and then begin to see which students are engaged, which students have been engaged through coursework, which students are engaged through clubs, which students have been engaged through learning communities, and so on, so that we can understand whether our desire to interact and engage students and retain students through these high impact practices is really realized in terms of retention rates and graduation rates. And so we're going to do this analysis for all the students within the college. And we're amongst the first in the university that are going through this process. And again, it's in response to this idea that if the next phase of student success in the university is to focus on these latter 2 years in engagement, we think we're doing this well already. So we really want to understand, are we doing the right things to help our students? And so academic support coordinators out there are going to receive some preliminary information from us that looks like this. We'll ask for some feedback on this, and we'll then begin to delve into how these practices are affecting students. So that's our challenge going forward. Thanks very much. Let me now introduce Mark Paskey, Research Associate Dean.
Thanks, Rich. Thanks, Mary. Now would be a good time for everybody to go get their picture taken if you're not interested in research. Like Rich and John said, the state of the college is very well, and certainly we see that reflected in the research metrics that I'll share with you. But first, let's talk a little bit. Oh, am I on the right slide here? Yep. About research within the university as a whole, which is something we should all be very proud of. The university is recognized as a Carnegie Level 1 Research Institute. We are second ranked nationally in federal research funding for universities without a medical school. And that's a pretty nice statement to think that we're number 2 in the country in that regard. We're one of 6 universities in the country that are designated as an innovation and economic prosperity university. And we're in the top 10% in the country for R&D according to the National Science Foundation. So we're sitting in a really good place within CSU for all of these different reasons. If we look within the College of Research metrics, there's a lot of different ways we can look at research productivity. The one that's easiest to get information for very often is our research dollars. And this figure here simply shows our research dollars over time, broken down by the different units in the college. And as usual, the story of research dollars in the college is dominated by some of our larger research units, particularly CIML and Natural Resource Ecology Lab and the Colorado State Forest Service, which are all very big players in terms of bringing in dollars to the college and the university. And the inclusion of those units actually pushes us to the top in terms of colleges within campus. We're 1 or 2 depending on how you break down the dollars in terms of our productivity or bringing in research dollars. Again, something we should be very proud of. The other thing I would point out that you can't really see very readily in this figure is that we have seen growth in recent years in the research dollars brought into the academic departments as well. So that's a very good sign. And you may recall last time I was up here, I talked about productivity based on publications, and I polled the department heads, and it turns out, as John mentioned, a lot of that type of data is very difficult to obtain. So as I'll mention in a few minutes, we are trying to do a better job of tracking some of those metrics, and digital measures is hopefully going to give us the tools to do that next year. So I'll probably be able to throw up a lot more metrics next year when I give this talk. So some things that I wanted to go over in terms of things that'll be new for this coming calendar year. We will hopefully fully implement digital measures. Those of you who don't know what digital measures is, you might want to familiarize yourself with it. It's something that faculty are going to become very familiar with in this coming year because most of us will be forced into using it if you're not already using it. So if you're unfamiliar with digital measures, now is a good time to go to some of the training classes that are available. Just log in and start to play around with it so you can get all of your information into digital measures. It'll make your life ultimately a lot easier once we cross that initial threshold of getting our information into it. We will also be seeing a major change in the way we submit research proposals this year. So if you're used to using the PASS system, you may be disappointed because we will start using Koali research module in place of the PASS system. And that transition is going to take place January 9th, I believe. Is that correct? Yep, January 9th. So there are trainings. The budget office has been sending out information about these trainings. If you've been ignoring those, you might want to revisit some of those emails because it's going to be a rude awakening come January 9th if you're not familiar with that and you have a proposal due on the 10th of January, for example. So you might want to think about learning about the new Koali research module. Also new is Tracy Trujillo. Some of you may know Tracy already, and Tracy is the WCNR research administrator, just started a few months ago, and she is available to help faculty with budget development for proposals. So in the past, we haven't had the luxury of having somebody like Tracy on the staff, so hopefully this will make faculty a little more comfortable with getting their proposals done and getting particularly the budgets to those proposals worked out. So if you're new faculty, you might want to stop by and introduce yourself to Tracy and take advantage of some of the expertise that she has to offer to you. One more thing I'd like to remind you of, and that is I sent out an email about an hour ago reminding people that we have nominations for a distinguished speaker at NR Days that is still open. So if you haven't nominated somebody yet, you had somebody in mind, please get those nominations in before the end of the year. You have a few more weeks, and we would love to see lots of nominations for very high-level people. We'd really like to bring in somebody at a very high level to give a sort of a keynote talk at the NR Days. So please give that some thought and feel free to nominate somebody. Things that we'll continue to do in 2017, if you're not familiar with this link on the WCNR intranet, you might want to familiarize yourself with that, at least right before the web page changes over and you won't be able to find it anymore, but hopefully that won't happen. But there is a link there when you first log into the intranet that says OVPR and WCNR research funding opportunities. And there are a few internal competitions that are posted there on occasion. The Quarterly Strategic Investment Initiative out of the VPR's office is a continuing quarterly RFP that's open all the time, so you might want to take a look at that. There's proposals for that due within the next couple of weeks, and if you're thinking of submitting one of those quarterly strategic investment proposals, you do it through this web portal as opposed to emailing it directly to the Vice President for Research office. So with that, next up is NREL. Stephen Ogle is going to give us an update.
Thank you. Yes. So I'm Stephen Ogle. I'm currently the Associate Director at NREL. John Moore, who's the Director, unfortunately couldn't be here today. He had a prior commitment for a project meeting in Arizona. NREL is about 50 years old, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes. We have a long history of research, and our primary theme has been systems thinking more broadly about how all these interacting parts come together and influence different processes occurring in the environment. So our work, while it's been focused in CNR, we've often involved scientists from across the various colleges here at the university, as well as scientists from other universities. NREL has about 40 scientists and research associates currently, along with 40 graduate students. It's closely aligned with the Department of Ecosystem Science and Sustainability, where there are another 18 faculty. All of those faculty are members of NREL, so that's important to keep in mind. We have over 350 undergraduates in that ESS department and another 25 graduate students. NREL, like I said, we've had this history of doing research around the idea of systems thinking. Much of our research has been advancing ecosystem science, but we also have some core areas currently that we're working in that we are more focus areas of research within the unit, such as climate change, ecosystem management, food and water security, as well as environmental science literacy. Another hallmark of our research is that we work all around the globe. So our research, of course, we do research here in Colorado, but we also do research around the country and in other continents around the world. In fact, we have research on all continents. And I know that's not necessarily unique to NREL, but it's certainly a hallmark of the research at our unit. We've received honors over the years. We had 4 scientists who were recognized among the group of IPCC authors that received the Nobel Peace Prize in 2007, along with Al Gore. And we've had other prizes since then. We also aligned with the North Central Climate Science Center, so that's a center on campus here. It's a joint effort between USGS and CSU. So there's been a lot of great work and interaction between NREL and this new center, as well as some of the rest of you on campus. Also with NREL, there's the USDA UVB monitoring program. That's a program that's been around for a few decades here. It's currently led by Wei Gao. And they do a lot of great research in agriculture. And one thing, of course, like most of you, we do a lot of research and publish that research. And one thing John wanted me to point out is we have a real strong concentration in soils research. And we've had 3 articles in the past 2 years that have been published in Nature, either led by an NREL scientist or an NREL scientist was a co-author on those papers. As I mentioned, we're closely aligned with the Department of Ecosystem Science and Sustainability. As Bill Ritter, the former governor, mentioned when we had our initial presentation to the college about our new department, it's sustainability as a core value, and I think it's been a really unique opportunity for NREL to get into the academic side of the college, because before, our focus was pretty much research, and I've been here since 2000, before ESS came about, and I'm also on the faculty at ESS. But before that, we were very much focused on our research projects. Most of us had 80 to 90% commitments on research. But this has given us a unique opportunity to take that research and bring it to the classroom. And I think seeing our enrollment now up over 350 is a testament to that, to us being able to bring that, and students have started to get engaged with us through those degrees. Also, we have our EcoCore Analytical Services, our facility there. It's a shared lab facility. Unlike some of the other departments on campus, we do not designate labs for our faculty. We share common labs. That model has worked very well for us in terms of being efficient and being able to share those resources in those labs and managers to oversee those activities. And John wanted me to mention this here today in the presentation. And also there's opportunities there. Because it provides services, we are open to doing laboratory analyses for others across the college as well as campus, and occasionally we do have actually external contracts, like currently we have one with Neon. And there's also opportunities for training. For example, if you have graduate students that need to learn certain analytical techniques that you're not necessarily an expert in, and we're doing them in REL, there's opportunities to come and have them trained there, so keep that in mind. We are also a program in research and scholarly excellence. We recently received a new award from the university, about $100,000, in which we are going to be expanding our program, bringing the theme of that call was to bring research to education. And we're going to focus on GIS, Geographic Information Systems, with new certificates. And if you work in the college in GIS, you may want to talk with Mike Fikowski, who's here today, or Michael Levsky, who are going to be leading that effort. And also through this grant, we are going to be strengthening our relationships internationally, particularly focused on Colombia and in Ethiopia. So we're going to try to form a closer relationship with them, which would bring students here and hopefully students from our programs to their universities as well. I just want to mention briefly, we have a really nice news website that is actually run by our graduate students. It's called EcoPress. And if you don't know a lot about NREL, this is a great place to go and learn about the research that we're doing. They do stories about every 2 weeks and about research the scientists are doing, things the graduate students are doing. It's a really neat research news site. So I'd encourage you to go look at that site if you're not familiar with it. And finally, I want to wrap up with our 50-year anniversary coming up. So NREL was founded in 1967. Here in 2017, we're going to be 50 years old. We have many activities planned next year, but in particular, we're going to have an international symposium, which is being done in collaboration with our International Programs Office. Be on the lookout for those dates. I hope to see many of you there at that symposium later this year, or next year, I guess, right? So I'll turn it over to the next speaker.
I'm Nicole Stafford, and I'm actually now the director of the CSU Environmental Learning Center, and that's a new position for me. I took that over just a few months ago from Dr. Brett Breyer, who is not here. However, I am here today to tell you, essentially familiarize you with the Environmental Learning Center and what it is that we do and who we are. So it's going to be a broad, general overview of what we do and who we are, but I'm more than happy to answer any questions about specific programs that we have going on as well. And actually, when I was sitting here, I realized that there are several ELC alums here in the room. So Simone worked for us many years ago. Hello. I worked with Ethan many, many years ago at the Environmental Learning Center when we were undergraduates. Courtney Peterson is an alum of HDNR, correct? Yeah, she now works at the Forest Service. So there are many of us who have gone through this program, worked in this program, and have gone on to continue our careers in these fields. So essentially, what is the Environmental Learning Center? We are an outreach program run through WCNR. We operate as a nonprofit through the foundation's 501c3 designation. We're funded through three main sources, so fee-for-service programming that we do, which I'll talk more about here in a minute, funds from the Dean's Office, thank you, and then grants and donations. And the core of what we do is this educational programming, and our main mission is to connect people through nature, to nature through that programming. We also do our own research to enhance the field of environmental education and more broadly environmental communication. So how do we do that? I like pictures, and it's the end of the semester, so you can look at some pretty pictures while I talk. We do this mainly, like I said, the heart of what we do is programming for the Northern Colorado and Fort Collins community. We serve about 4,500 people annually through these programs. We do about 175 programs a year, mainly with a K through 12th grade audience, and even we can make that a little bit smaller, mainly with a K through 5th grade audience, though we do have middle school and high school programs. It's just harder to reach those students, but we're working on it. We do programs on a variety of topics, wildlife, soil, water quality, you name it, we can probably put together a program about it. We do most of our programs on our property, which we are very blessed to have. It is 212 acres right along the Poudre River, kind of where East Drake and Ziegler meet. If you've never been out there, it's a really special piece of land. We are adjacent to the water reclamation facility out there. Martin Marietta has gravel mining right near us. There's a natural area on the other side. We're right near I-25. We are a really cool island. Really special place to go. We're an off-trail use site, so we get to take our participants off-trail, romping around, exploring. It's really special. Aside from doing programs out on our site, occasionally we do go to various locations like different schools if it makes more sense for that population, various different centers, Boys and Girls Club, things like that. I think one of the most important things to talk about is who we are. So there's myself, now director. We have our program coordinator, she's sitting right here, Kristen Wilkinson. She just got married. She used to be Kristen Dean. It's very hard for me to say that. And then we have 12 to 15, mostly undergraduates, occasionally a graduate student or two, working for us at most times. They come from all over the college. Most of those students act as educators for us, so they are planning and implementing all of our educational programs that we do for those various age groups. We do have one site maintenance coordinator that we hire, also a student, and that person is in charge of the upkeep and maintenance of our property, our East Drake site that we call it. So that's the buildings, the fence in the parking lot, the bathrooms, as well as the trail system, managing invasive weeds out there, which if you've been out there, we have plenty. It's really unique. We're a very unique nature center in the fact that students do all of our teaching. It's really amazing to have that, I would call it a gift, to have those students. They're incredibly innovative, they're incredibly passionate. They can make connections with the students that we work with that those of us who are older and have been in the workforce cannot. So it's really neat to see them being able to put forth that energy into what they do, while also being able to take what they learn in the classroom and kind of interpret that to various age groups in an effective manner. I also think it's important to talk about why it is we do what we do. I asked a few, while I was putting this together, I asked a few of our students who were sitting in office hours, as well as Kristen and myself have some quotes up here about why do we do what we do? Why do we think it's important? I think most of you out here know that a connection to nature is kind of the foundation of where we are today in our fields of study or our careers. At some point in time, we had wonderful experiences in nature. And we want to be able to give that to the future generations. So that is the main reason why we do what we do. We want to have a sustainable future for our Earth, and those experiences, we believe, are going to get us there. We also believe firmly that being out in nature and those connections are incredibly beneficial and important for physical and mental health, and that every child has a deep-seated right to those experiences and to that physical and mental health. So we kind of work for the whole child, I would say. Aside from kind of the heart of what we do, which is that programming, we're also a natural area for public enjoyment. Our trails are open. We have about 2 miles of trails. Are open for the public to come out and enjoy 7 days a week, 365 days a year, from dawn to dusk. So we see a lot of families out there, again, off-trail use, so going off-trail, going fishing, things like that. We're a research site for CSU faculty and students. Usually we have at least one research project going on site. Right now I think we have a wildlife camera trap project that is graduate students. This summer we had a visiting scholar who was looking for a specific subspecies of grasshopper out there. Usually every summer we have people out there collecting mosquitoes. If you've ever been out there in the summer, we have plenty of them. So a lot of different things going on out there. We're also a volunteer site for CSU and the broader Fort Collins community, so we do have a small volunteer program out there. We see a lot of groups from CSU, like fraternities and sororities, as well as individuals from CSU and Fort Collins who come out for our volunteer days. We're a teaching resource for all of you, if you didn't know that. We see a lot of entomology classes out there, wildlife classes, environmental communications classes, all using our property to take what we're learning in the classroom out into the field. And then, like I mentioned in our mission, we are a producer of original research. I think it's one area of growth for us, but we're usually always working on at least one research project. So, for example, in the past, we've looked at barriers to the Hispanic Latino population here in Fort Collins to participating in programs like ours. We've also looked at the efficacy of an all-girls after-school program focused on the environmental sciences and their interest in science in the future, just as a couple of examples. And then finally, Rob asked me to also talk about where we're going. So I'm brand new here, although I've been at the ELC in various capacities for many, many years. I'm very familiar with it. But we, Kristen and myself, and probably bring in others from outside, will do some revisioning. So where do we want to go in the next 5 years? And we'll start that process next spring. Although I have identified just in the past few months some areas of growth for us, I think, that I hope to see there. And I think the main one that I'm really excited about is really increasing our outreach to middle and high school students. I think that's very important. It's a gap here in Fort Collins, and I think that if we can reach some of those high school students in the area and get them excited about CSU and the Warner College, we can potentially have them here at CSU. So thank you. That is all.
Good afternoon. My name is Tony Chang, and I'm the director of the Colorado Forest Restoration Institute. I'm also a professor in the Department of Forest and Rangeland Stewardship. And I'd be remiss to say that my children have been consumers of the Environmental Learning Center, so thank you very much for at least giving them about 40 hours of energy that they were able to spend outside and not around here. My remarks will be brief, and so you can start polishing your glasses to fill them up here really quick. And I've been accused of taking entirely too long up on stage. So I want to talk a little bit about two of the kind of outreach, applied research and extension type of programs that I oversee in the Department of Forest and Rangeland Stewardship. The first is the Colorado Forest Restoration Institute, and the second is the Southern Rockies Fire Science Network. And the byline that I chose to put up here really exemplifies, I think, our strategy, our style, and our impact in that it's not just applied research, but we really bring it into problem-solving environments, working with communities, with land managers, with a variety of stakeholder groups to really try to make an impact at fairly large landscape scales, but also down to individual property levels. And we really try to bridge that gap between the ecological system and the people, and that especially in the context of the forest restoration issues that we deal with. One of the organizing principles is wildland fire, and fire is one of those phenomenon that we have a very complex relationship with, and so it's something that we really try to navigate in our work. So CFRI has been around since 2004. It was originally started by Dan Binkley and Bill Rami, who are now somewhat recently retired faculty in ESS. But then the Congress in 2004, after some fairly large, severe wildland fire seasons out here in the West, enacted a piece of legislation to start up 3 restoration institutes in the Southwest, one here at Colorado State, one at Northern Arizona University, and one at New Mexico Highlands University in Las Vegas, New Mexico. And it really was intended to leverage the science and research capacity of universities and academic programs within universities to bring to bear to practical problems around wildland fire and restoring our dry forest types around the West. And so I didn't have an encyclopedia volume of slides, but we essentially work across Colorado, and then we also collaborate with our colleagues down in Northern Arizona and New Mexico. We deal with some issues that are at fairly large landscape scales. So one of our projects is here on the Colorado Front Range. Fairly large-scale, ambitious program of work involving many different government and non-governmental organizations to reduce wildland fire risk and to restore forest functioning. One of the new exciting initiatives that we have is working with water providers on some of the efforts that they're trying to enact to reduce their fire risk and fire exposure, and providing some quantitative analyses about what the return on their investments as they invest in field treatments. And we work across our departments within the college, as well as have collaborations across the university. We also have a emphasis on wildland-urban interface. Colorado is one of 3 states in the western U.S. where the human development into wildland areas has really been a kind of almost a front page headline story around wildfire impacts. And so one of the opportunities that we've been able to have through some funding from the Washington Office of the Forest Service is to establish a program of work, and then we get to interact with a whole variety of local government and community entities all the way up to the federal agency to try to get a handle on coming up with some of these next generation solutions for reducing risk to those wildland-urban interface communities. The Southern Rockies Fire Science Network is another outreach-oriented program that I direct, and Gloria Edwards is the coordinator for that. We are one of 16 what they call fire science exchange networks that are sponsored by the Joint Fire Science Program. Joint Fire Science is a federal interagency funding program that historically has sponsored a variety of basic and applied research around wildland fire science. One of the issues that they found in one of their program reviews about 4 years ago was that a lot of the science that they produced wasn't actually being used by the clientele that they intended, that were actually paying for it, which are the federal land managers. And so they established these fire science exchange networks. One of them here is at CSU, and our service area covers from the Black Hills of South Dakota through southern Wyoming, Colorado, and eastern Utah. And we really serve as a bridge between the research community and the science producers and those managers and entities that are really trying to grapple with these complex problems around wildland fire and their impacts on social ecological systems. And so we work with a variety of partners. Government, non-governmental organizations, other universities, and we sponsor a whole variety of wonderful, what we call science exchange and knowledge exchange opportunities. Everything from we leverage the web and a variety of virtual learning opportunities to face-to-face exchanges. So CFRI is composed of 9 full-time research associates at administrative professionals, and they oversee a wide range of a program of work. But one of the things that we connect with the college with is that we hire an enormous number of students. Last year, I think we hired 18. I think we're going to be hiring up in the 30s this year. So we draw from students all across the college and even outside of the university. And that's a great opportunity to provide these students with that applied field work, and sometimes we help them develop undergraduate research theses and projects, and those get presented at a variety of our university undergraduate research forums. It's a really great opportunity for our students to take a lot of the theory and book learning that they get in class and actually go out and try to apply it out in the field. Sometimes our field crew leaders pack snowballs in coolers in the middle of July and surprise them with snowball fights. So being spontaneous and having fun. As I had mentioned, we interact. Our work really isn't successful unless we interact and collaborate with a whole variety of entities across the university and even beyond our university walls. We have interactions with NREL, as Steve mentioned, a lot of that cross-departmental interaction. We have a program of work with the Center for Collaborative Conservation and the Colorado Conservation Exchange. We work with our federal partners at the Rocky Mountain Research Station and at the U.S. Geological Survey. And one of the things that I think we provide as a service is now we have data at multiple scales about forest resources and fire and those variety of habitats all across the state. And so we're now able to bring them back into classrooms and use those, especially in capstone experiences like NR 420, so students get to really work on real data, solving real problems. And as an outreach and extension-oriented program, we connect with our partners that do the same, like the Colorado State Forest Service, Colorado Natural Heritage Program, Center for Collaborative Conservation, and then also entities across the region in the U.S. Forest Service, Bureau of Land Management, those kinds of things. So we really see ourselves as a portal for engaging our faculty, staff, and students, as well as a way for those entities to really have get to know us within the college. And so we always have those opportunities to be able to connect our constituents with what's going on in the college. So thanks for having us.
Great. So our last kind of formal part of the meeting is our faculty panel, and I want to set this up just a little bit. Everybody that's in the room and everyone that's not in the room that's affiliated with the college plays a really important role in advancing our programs. And I think we all recognize that when we think about it, sometimes we don't. But there's a huge team behind all of our faculty and our students that are really there to help them make success. And so that's an incredibly important part of our university and our college that we oftentimes fail to recognize. And so just as I'm thinking about that, personal thank you to all those folks who sometimes don't get thanked, and I'd encourage you all to reach out to those folks today and thank them. But in terms of the future direction and the impacts that our college makes, our faculty do play a special role in that. And it's the faculty, I have no illusions that it's the administrators that really shape that direction and shape the impacts that we make. And, they do that in a lot of different ways. They do it in the classroom, they do it in their research programs, and there's a number of things that they do independently with that group backing them up, of course. But, they're independent efforts that really propel that forward. But the thing that's cool about a college or a department or some broader group is it's not just those independent activities that make the difference. It's the way that that team of people interacts and collaborates and moves forward. And see that, I mean, you all have lots of examples in your mind of how that happens. But, you know, one of the things that I have sensed that's a barrier to that is just a basic fundamental lack of knowledge of who those people even are and what types of things they're involved in and what they want to do. And so this panel is really in part a small step in trying to help avoid those barriers or remove those barriers. And so I thought it would be great to take the faculty that were hired in the past year and give them a chance to come up and reintroduce themselves to you, or in some cases introduce themselves to you, and talk a little bit about their vision and their direction. And I say a little bit, and I really mean a little bit. I've restricted them each to 3 minutes of an overview of who they are, and then we'll have about 15 minutes for a group presentation. And I did mention to them, and I'll remind them in the email, that tenure, promotion, and future salary increases are dependent on adhering to this 3-minute piece. So we take this very seriously. But we had 6 new faculty members come on in the past year in the tenure track positions. Unfortunately, Lisa Streit was unable to be with us here today, but we do have 5 other people who I'd ask to come up and join us here at the table: Mike Falkowski, Linda Nagel, Seth X, Joel Berger, and John Singleton. So if you could all kind of come up and grab a seat here at the panel. And so I've asked each of them in 3 minutes, absolutely no more, and we have a timekeeper who's going to keep you honest here on this one, to address 2 different questions. The first is, what is the underlying passion or focus that shapes your program at CSU? And the second is, what is the one big idea in research, education, outreach, and/or service that you would like to engage in with people outside of your home unit to advance important societal, scientific, institutional, or educational goals? And so the idea is that now you'll put a name with the face and part, but also they're going to give you just a touch of their vision about how they may be able to interact with some of you. And so we'll start with Dr. Joel Berger and then just kind of work our way across the stage. And Joel, the floor is yours.
Well, this is scary given what John just said about time, so I need to start talking. So I'm in Fisheries, Wildlife, and Conservation Biology under the guidance and tutelage of Ken Wilson. Okay, so first issue, passion. What am I passionate about? I'm passionate about biodiversity conservation. I work in wild systems, but I like to take the science and try to put it into action. And so doing conservation means people. And so if you don't understand people, you're already at a disadvantage. And so I try to engage in human dimensions. I also work a fair amount with T&E species, but not wolves or grizzly bears because they're too controversial. But I try to build bridges between wild and domestics. If I'm dealing with wild yaks, I want to understand something about domestic yaks. If I'm dealing with zebras, I want to understand something about horses. So that would be the first part for the passion. The second is thinking about one big idea, or where we can take some of this. And so I think about when Nelson Mandela was released from prison, he became president, he talked about the value of trans-frontier parks as icons of peace. And he didn't talk about animals, and he did talk about biodiversity, but when I try to think about how do we deal with the disconnection of urban from rural, from youth and what they do, and Tony showed this, and Nicole gave some great examples about what she and the Learning Center are doing. I think about if we have 3,000 or 3,500 parks in the world, we have 144 that are trans-frontier. What are their icons? They don't have an icon. And so how do we symbolize some of the threats and challenges, whether they're from climate, whether they're from agricultural land conversions? And so I think about how to build upon what a lot of the people here do and to try to infuse and evince the fascination that comes with animals, just like we can get 600,000 hits in an email to name Ling Ling's baby. Why can't we do better with trying to figure out how to symbolize icons and use animals? Thanks.
Hello, I'm John Singleton, Assistant Professor in Geosciences. I started here in August 2015, so I'm just finishing up my third semester. I really love it here, so I want to make sure I'm under the 3 minutes here. In terms of research, I'm a structural geologist. I study deformed rocks in order to better understand tectonic processes and regional geologic histories. My two principal field areas right now are in western Arizona and in the Atacama Desert in northern Chile, where I'm heading in a few weeks with some graduate students. In general, my research is very field-oriented. Most of my research inspiration comes from fieldwork. Most of my research ideas and important data come directly from fieldwork. So like many of the other faculty and students in our department, and I suspect across the Warner College in general, I love doing science in the field. And I try to integrate field exercises into my classes as much as possible. And it turns out that's really easy to do here in Fort Collins. We have fantastic geology in our backyard, and I've really enjoyed being out in the field with students on field trips. And along those lines, this fall I proposed a new field course in our department that was recently approved by UCC. The course specifically focuses on the geology of the Colorado Front Range, and it's designed for sort of sophomore level geology majors and transfer students coming into the major, but the only prerequisite is an undergraduate intro geology course, so it could be open to students in other departments as well. And the course focuses specifically on the Front Range geology. There are several motivations. One is that we like the idea of getting students out in the field early in their education, teaching them some fundamental field skills early on. We like the idea that they come away with an expertise in their local geology and the geology of Colorado. And lastly, I'm really keen on using the mountain campus for some of our field exercises. The goal for this course is to have a 3 to 4 day field exercise in September that would get out to the mountain campus, do exercises ranging from looking at high temperature metamorphic rocks to surficial deposits. The plan is for Sarah Rathburn and myself to co-teach this course. And I know the mountain campus has been important in the Warner College in the past, and I think it'd be great if Geosciences started to integrate the mountain campus into some of their field exercises. And perhaps down the road we could broaden the scope of some of these field exercises, bring in exercises from other disciplines, perhaps watershed geosciences or watershed science, for example, could be integrated into this course. So I'm going to stop there before I'm out of over time. Thanks.
Good afternoon. I'm Linda Nagel. I'm a faculty member in the Department of Forest and Rangeland Stewardship. My background is forestry, and I'm a silviculturist by training. We have another silviculturist on this panel, so we love definitions. So I'm going to give you one definition, and the other silviculturist can give you another definition. So silviculture is really the art and science of controlling vegetation, its establishment, its growth, its composition, its quality, and it's really connected to a huge range of management objectives. And so it's rooted in forest ecology, but it's really driven by human values. And so I think that's one of the things that really drew me to that particular field, is that it's both a science and it's an art, and it really involves a lot of complexity, and it's a really interdisciplinary type of field. It was not necessarily my intention in my career to be heavily involved with continuing education, but that's something that sort of developed very early on when I became a faculty member elsewhere at Michigan Tech, and it became a really core part of who I am as a person and how I approach the work that I do, both as a faculty member and now leading a department. And another component that became a really important part of what I do is experiential learning. And I think my heart is really in those two things, experiential learning and continuing education. So one big idea that I would like to see further developed in the college, more recently in the last 8 or 10 years or so, I've been heavily involved with developing adaptive management strategies in the context of climate change. And this has been both from a research perspective, but also from a training and continuing education perspective. And so within the college, it seems to me that there is a tremendous amount of capacity in a couple of areas. It's both adaptation from an ecological standpoint, but also, and we've heard a lot about this today, socio-ecological adaptation. And I think there's a lot of work we can do across the college to bridge those two things and bring those two things together. And then also broadening the reach of what the college does and how we reach on-the-ground practices. So trying to build the college as a go-to place for the development and dissemination of tools and training for adaptive management in the context of climate change and all kinds of other environmental issues. So, thank you.
All right, I'm Mike Falkowski. I'm a faculty member in the Department of Ecosystem Science and Sustainability, and I study ecosystems, various ecosystem processes through the lens of remotely sensed data and geospatial data. And I guess in terms of my passion, I really remember first being introduced to these technologies as an undergraduate student and just being able to see various environmental processes and human impacts on the landscape or the globe unfold in a really dynamic way across the variety of spatial extents from regions, landscapes to the globe. And these experiences really had a shape on my career, the career choices I made after I finished my undergraduate and that I currently use to direct my program. And so the work I really do sits at the interface between science and management, and that's really where I like to be. And I think all too often we as academics kind of fail to forget that if we don't get our research into the hands of people that are actually going to make decisions on the ground, it's not going to make a really that much of a big of a difference in terms of changing things in a positive direction. And so one example of my work that I've been involved with in the last couple of years that's really been exciting to me is working through the Sage Grouse Initiative, which is a natural resources conservation service-led initiative that integrates scientific decision-making processes and really gets it into hands of land managers so they can make actionable decisions on the ground. And so we use geospatial data to generate habitat characterizations at high resolutions that actually ranchers and other land managers can use to decide where to prioritize treatments and habitat improvements on their ranches. And so Linda and I didn't actually really compare notes, but I really also am a strong proponent of continuing education. I really enjoy educating land managers and professionals on the use of geospatial data. And so, yeah, I'll stop there. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Seth X. I'm a silviculturist in the Department of Forest and Rangeland Stewardship. I'm the other silviculturist. So I'm a forester by profession and a silviculturist by training. Silviculture is a Latin term that means cultivation of forests. I think Linda offered an excellent definition for silviculture. A real short, I think, good working definition is applied forest ecology. That's what we do. I study forests, and I'm gonna get personal here for a minute. I study forests because I really love forests and they have a lot of value to me personally. That's why I work in forests. I find them to be uplifting, invigorating, rejuvenating places to be, and they really just enrich my soul to be there. So that's why I study them. You might fairly ask why, if that's how I feel about forests, that I chose a discipline where I rub shoulders with loggers and sawyers and people who might be perceived as people that destroy forests. I would, I guess, challenge that perception to start with, but to set that aside, the reason why I've chosen my particular discipline and why I focus on what I do is because I am really interested in and focused on human interaction with forests, how people interact and manipulate forested environments. That's what I'm really interested in. I think some of the novel changes that we've seen in forest ecosystems recently, and I'm talking about widespread forest mortality events, big fires, expansion of the wildland-urban interface, problematic legacies of past land management, those sorts of things. I think some of those changes present really exciting opportunities to help us develop how people interact with and manipulate forested environments for two reasons. One, I think that some of those changes have handed us really difficult problems that will require interdisciplinary solutions that will force us to get better as people who work in natural resources and what we do. And two, I think, and this is just speculative, but I think that we're likely to see greater social license for active land management for landscapes that are perceived to be damaged or degraded or imperiled in some way. So I think that there's an opportunity there to not only get much better at what we do, but see our better practices applied widely. So I think I'm probably well under 3 minutes. I'm just going to stop.
Well, thanks so much for sharing that. We've got maybe 15 minutes or so that we've got identified for some engagement here. After this, we can use all of that or none of it if you want to. But I guess the idea here was that, perhaps there's reactions, thoughts, questions, comments from the audience to the group or amongst the group. With one another relative to these things, but just kind of to prime this up a little bit, maybe I'll start with a question to the group that you might react to. One of the it's always a challenge to think beyond our own disciplines or the very specific things that we're highly focused on to move forward in some of these big ideas that involve lots of different people and work across disciplines and so on. And I think there's lots of obvious reasons for that. The barriers are pretty obvious, and they oftentimes come down to either finances to really take an idea and move it forward, but oftentimes, and we can get more finances, right, Scott? Yeah. But time is something that it's pretty finite, and so how we divide our time up and how we use that is oftentimes a real barrier. So let's not worry about that for a minute, but that's a constraint that we all have to work within. Given that, your thoughts, having been here for roughly a year, most of you, some a little more, some a little less, in terms of where we are in the college and at CSU, any thoughts or ideas about things that we should be thinking about to better engage across programs, to better work together to advance some of these ideas? And I suspect everybody in the room has got another set that we could put on the table. We have 15 minutes, and I will stand here the entire time if I have to.
Okay.
I knew I could count on you, Joel.
Is this, yeah, it is working, okay. Yeah, but you're not gonna like my answer.
That's all right.
So we have 8 colleges on campus. I guess I would challenge to ask who has been effective at working across 7 of those colleges? And if you don't raise your hand, 6, and we'll go 5. And at some point, maybe over a beer, I will ask, what's this? How do you do it? And how do we develop depth, but how do we also maintain breadth to make us as a university more effective? And so come up to me at some point and tell me how many colleges you work effectively across.
That was a question. That wasn't an answer.
I said you weren't going to like it.
Linda.
I think one of our challenges is just what you said before as you launched this panel, which is trying to better understand who we are as an institution, I see this all the time in meetings, especially meetings where there are people from across different colleges together in the same room. They meet each other for the first time, and they learn something really interesting and important and unique about that person, and you just see light bulbs go off and conversations starting to unfold. And so I think that's one of the first steps, is just better educating ourselves and creating these forums or these platforms or these spaces where we can learn from each other what we even do as a first step. But I don't know how to get to the end point of where Joel's asking folks to weigh in.
You could come to the Council of Deans. I interact with all of them all the time.
Your hand didn't go up.
Other thoughts on that, or other comments or ideas or reactions from the panels about this or anything else?
It's not a softball question.
Okay. With that, let's thank the panelists one more time for. So thanks. I actually really enjoyed that, and I learned a bit myself from all of you, and it was great to have you up here. We're moving into kind of the final part of the meeting here, which is the open forum, if we have people who want to engage in that. I do want to say a couple things, though, before we go there and make some kind of broader closing comments before we get to the open forum part. This sort of an event is a bit of a challenge to figure out how to structure it and what to do. And, on one level, we could try to give you a comprehensive annual report of everything that goes on in the college, and it would take hours to do that well, and I know you're all anxious to use those beer glasses over here, so we chose not to do that. Instead, this was really more kind of a series of vignettes, if you will, and just a glimpse into things. It could have been, we could have done a completely different set of individuals and programs and activities, and it would have had some elements that were different. But to me, I thought there was a bit of you got a sense of the flavor of some of the things that are going on, and I really appreciate all the presentations that people gave. If you have other thoughts about other ways we might do this better or more effectively in the future, we do this really for you, believe it or not, as opposed to for us, and so open for any thoughts and ideas on that. I guess what I'd like to do at this point, though, is to open it up. If there are any questions, comments that people want to have addressed, especially things by me or Mark or Rich, then this is an opportunity to do that. And if not, that's fine too. I'll pause just a minute more for the shy person that's got that great idea. I knew there was one. Yes, Sarah.
I'm wondering if the Warner mini grants for research will be revived.
Yeah. Mark, you want to comment on that?
That was a pool of money that is no longer available, I understand. John, do you want to correct me on that? But that was a temporary program that was based on some money that Ed gave to the college, and it had a lifespan because the money ran out. So we no longer have those funds available to run that program.
Yeah, so with that in mind, if there's strong interest in rejuvenation of that program, as Mark said, we don't have a pile of money that we can direct in that way, but those are the types of ideas that we can certainly work into our development goals and development programs. To be real honest, Sarah, it kind of went to sleep and there hadn't been a lot of engagement with even the idea. So be happy to chat further and follow up with you on that or others. Anybody else? Yeah, Nicole.
I know that there's a diversity in
hold on just a second. So we are actually, for those of you who want to experience this again, this will be on YouTube tomorrow. So if, we'll go ahead and have the questions in the microphone, so we'll be able to capture that, so you can relive the experience again tomorrow. Yeah.
So I know there's a diversity and inclusion committee of some sort within the college, and
Yeah.
I'm curious as to if there's updates available for us to
Yeah.
look at, or what the deal is there.
So, just in case you couldn't hear, the question was about the Diversity and Inclusion Committee in the college, and if there's updates or activities there that might be given. So we do have a Diversity and Inclusion Committee as of maybe, when did we start that? January? Last January? Maybe not quite that long ago. Maria Fernandez-Jimenez and Kay Holman are co-chairs of that committee. It's been, from my sense, an extremely engaged and active committee. I want to pat the committee members on the back here a little bit, because they've really been taking their charge and their mission very seriously and moving things forward. I'll characterize it this way, and then Maria, if you want to add anything, please do. But we're at the beginning, really, of that process. There are some recommendations that they've already come forward with respect to the hiring process and language in our searches, as well as new requirements in the position descriptions and in the evaluation of potential faculty members, is where it's focused on right now, that we have, the executive committee agreed to maybe a week or two ago. We'll get something around to everybody about that. And there's a number of other areas where they're moving forward. Let me say one other thing about diversity and inclusion in general, and then Maria, I don't know if you have any things you want to add or not. You can think while I'm talking. This is one of our 5 goals in the strategic plan, and it's something that I'm personally deeply committed to moving forward on. This is a real challenge, not just for us, but for natural resource programs across the country. It's, I think, for us to really make the sorts of long-term impacts in the country and in the world that we want to do, we need to figure out a way to tackle this. If it was an easy problem, people would have figured it out a long time ago, but it's not an excuse. It's just the context within which we work. We are working at lots of different levels on this, everything from trying to move forward to create a greater culture of inclusion with the college to some very specific initiatives. Yesterday, I guess it was, I presented in front of the provost a proposal to create 2 new positions in the college that are focused on issues that are pertinent to and of a special importance to people from underserved communities or from specific ethnic or cultural groups. And so that could be anything from, research focused on how they interface with natural resources, or specific challenges or problems with natural resource utilization, conservation, management, whatever, in those groups, perceptions of natural resources as they vary across those. So there's a research component to that, but there's also an important educational component to that we're interested in, with the sense that having that cross-cultural competency of our students within the program is going to be really important, as well as carving out niches for people who are particularly concerned with those issues, and perhaps that will be helpful in additional recruitment of a greater diversity for our students. That's just one. That was yesterday. We're moving forward on lots of different fronts on this, and I guess the way I would characterize it is, again, I'm dissatisfied with progress, but I'm excited about the direction that we're trying to go. Maria, do you have anything you want to add?
I'm stealing the microphone
Oh,
before I give
Kay.
it to her. So I'm Kay Holman. I am co-chair with Maria Fernandez Jimenez of our Committee on Diversity and Inclusion, and I'm in Ecosystem Science and Sustainability. I wanted to provide a little bit of history for you on the committee as it pertains to larger campus initiatives and mention students, and then I'll turn it over to Maria to comment specifically additionally about the college. So the President Frank, actually convened a commission for diversity and inclusion, which Mary Ontiveros is heading up for campus. And folks from across campus have been asked to send college representatives as well as representatives from really large units, like hiring, of course, is represented in the room, and Provost's office is represented in the room. So about the same time, late spring, is when then the committee first came together here within Warner, and we have representatives from all 5 departments as well as rather large units within the college. So Courtney, for example, is representing for Forest Service, and Liz Caldwell is representing for CML, and I'm sure I'm missing half the other folks in the room I should be mentioning specifically. So that's a little bit about the history and the connections. From a communication standpoint, I'm kind of taking that role as co-chair, and so I've been keeping track of all of our minutes for actions. And one of the things that I'm coordinating with Dean Hayes is to make sure that in the new year, we'll be emailing out to the college at large, letting you know that this committee exists, as Nicole's question pertains to, and then also making sure we're providing you regular updates, not only on our actions, but also the President's Commission's actions. That's something that Mary has been very, very adamant about, making certain that the President's Commission is not operating in isolation, but is really representative of campus and campus concerns. And that's where, on that last point, I'll mention our students. One of the student concerns on campus this fall has been with regard to students who are experiencing aspects of overt racism, overt, I get caught up in it because I get emotional about it, who have themselves experienced something extraordinarily negative about who they are. And one of the real concerns that Mary felt she could act on right away was to be able to, for example, with our student records system, be able to take away aspects of gender identity when it comes to how students are identifying and how they may be represented in the classroom. So for example, a student who identifies as Joan being outed on the first day of class because her name is in the record as John. And so our Warner students through the Warner College Council actually were extraordinary in providing direct feedback. I went in and was able to meet with them for about 15 minutes, and they provided very sensitive and very enlightened feedback to be able to give representing our Warner College perspectives. So it just gives you a little bit of the insight of some of those behind the scenes activities. And now I'll turn it over to Maria to speak more specifically about the college level activities.
I'll just be super brief. The other 2 things besides the hiring practices that we're working on the very short term, one is data collection. So we have the IR information on the composition of our students, but we really know very little about their actual experiences, especially those students who are marginalized in some way through their identities. And so we've made a proposal to the dean to be able to do a sort of a climate assessment for our students, undergraduate and graduate, that would have both a quantitative and a qualitative component. And then the other really important thing that we next want to address, and we have to educate ourselves and work closely with student affairs, is that gap that Rich pointed out, and in retention and in graduation rates for our, especially our racially and ethnically minority students.
Maria, you also one of the things I thought you were going to talk about was your recommendation for faculty training.
Yes, so that was part of the hiring recommendations. It had there were sort of 3 parts to that. One was the language in the position descriptions. One was training for all members of search committees, not just search committee chairs. And really, we would like to see all faculty, because this goes beyond searches. It goes to how we interact with our students and with our colleagues and peers inside the classroom and outside. And that is a starting point is implicit bias, or sometimes it's called unconscious bias training, to make us all more aware of those attitudes we all hold and how we might unintentionally act or speak up on the basis of those in ways that are harmful to others, basically. So some of our departments have already done that. HDNR did a training like that at one of their retreats. Our department did a short training, but we'd really like to promote doing that in a way that not just those of us who volunteer and are already committed and interested attend them, but everybody gets a certain level of understanding and awareness of how those things that we all have, all of us have them, unintentionally can affect others and can affect in the classroom, really address that gap. That's where, because it directly impacts the learning experience and achievement of our students.
Thanks, Maria. Other comments or questions? Okay, as I mentioned, this is being filmed for, and it'll be available on YouTube. Not that any of you really would want to re-experience this, but there may be, part of the reason we did that is that you know, we have Warner College is a big place, and it really spans the country and the globe through our programs with SEML, as well as across the state with Colorado State Forest Service, and a lot of folks couldn't be here. And so in the event people do want to see it, it'll be available there. My apologies to all of you who are seeing it that way. You don't get one of the glasses that everybody else gets. But I did want to close with first a thank you. Mary Dolce, Roberta Brower, and Rob Novak, who's homesick, were really helpful and instrumental and really did the yeoman's work in pulling together this. So join me in thanking them for. So we will now move to the holiday party, which is in the Longs Peaks room. We have refreshments and munchies there. Please do bring a glass with you. You're welcome to stop in the restroom on the way and clean it out if you want to fill it up with carbonated beverage at the other end. And I would encourage you in that forum to look around, find somebody who you don't know what their name is, and walk up to them and say hi and learn a bit about them. And thanks so much for being here, and have a great holiday.